What's up? Nicholas Woodkey here, returning for another day of book reading in Parabolic Magnetic Key. We are on segment 4, and we are on page 16, and I hope it is as enthralling as the first 3. Camp was packed up. Dave made sure the fire was out and no flaming embers remained. The legs got stretched and the walk into town began. A slow trot surfaced, which increasingly got faster as their anticipation for town activity started to set in. They had about a mile left to go when they stopped at the side of a creek for a small break. With hand grasping his canteen, about to submerge it into the creek for refilling, Dave started a small conversation. "Why do you think there aren't many people going into Xanth this morning? We should have seen tons of them by now." "You would think that be the case, since an entire army spent the night there and all," Mick replied. "It sure is strange. I hope there isn't anything weird going on." Dave stood up from renewing his water supply in the creek and motioned his finger towards his canteen cap that was sitting out of reach on a rock next to Mick, an unspoken favor request from a friend to a friend. Encapsulating efficiency, Mick complied by tossing the cap without hesitation. "Well, are we ready to move on?" "Yep." Westward they traveled, in possession of a lease guaranteeing a vigorous day, heading towards the medium-sized town of Xanth. They knew a bridge crossing was imminent for anyone approaching Xanth from its eastern side. They arrived at said bridge crossing and cautiously proceeded over the rickety wooden construction, both Mick and Dave having an eye designated for danger. There was a small possibility the bridge would give out as they crossed it, but they were more so clung to attentiveness because bottlenecks of bridges always seem to be the trapping zone for thieves and bandits. Dangerous times indeed. Having successfully crossed the bridge, Mick and Dave resumed their not-so-vigilant attitudes, but they weren't so lucky the second they stepped into an aspen thicket along the path. The reason why all the roads on that side of Xanth were so empty became immediately evident to them. Standing encircled around Mick and Dave were 4 stoic men, all clad in the most potent of armor and weaponry. 3 of the 4 were highly skilled in fighting discipline, but Mick and Dave could see that the 4th wasn't. They could piece together that information by noticing the 4th's lack of coordination in his walking gait. The 4th was just occupying the quartet to serve as an expendable diversion if conflict ever actually ensued. The successful thieves had yet to draw weapons, due to their threatening disposition, having effortlessly gathered vast loot from easy-to-fleece people on their honest way into Xanth. With the sinister men surrounding them, Mick and Dave instinctively grabbed the hilts of their swords. They prepared for the first of the spoken words from the obviously aggressive confronters. The leader of the bandit group, the tallest, who carried an almost 4-foot broadsword, was the one to speak first. For some reason, probably to be humorous, he uttered his opening line in a courteous way. "May we please have your money? My name is Paul, and we are on a pilgrimage to Lake Buyenhall to pray at the shrine of Mayconton. But our funds are getting extremely low, too low to continue." Responding with a laugh of sorts, Mick reciprocated, "Our funds are also getting pretty low, for we are as well on a pilgrimage. May we please have your money?" Beginning to show signs of anger, Paul riposted, "I guess we are at an impasse then." Dave decided to add to the intriguing conversation. "So, if we just trade all our assets with each other, the stalemate will be broken, and we'll all be happy in theory. Am I right?" After Dave's remark, a comment that could have been misconstrued as arrogance, Paul grabbed his broadsword and with a show of fury swung it at his nearest opponent, Mick. Reacting accordingly, Mick ducked. Dave, being free to move quickly, took out the expendable diversion, who was trying to flank his right side. Dave knew it would be a quick kill, which is why he decided on that as being his first course of action. It left 2 standing for him to fight. Combat styles of Dave's adversaries were congruent, a particular style which Dave had faced before, but he wasn't sure if he could handle them both simultaneously. He attacked with the utmost confidence nevertheless. Meanwhile, Mick had his hands full with their leader. who could handle his long broadsword like most could handle their own arm. After Mick and Paul exchanged a considerable number of unsuccessful lunges, thrusts, and parries, Mick looked over at Dave and noticed he was about to get overwhelmed. Mick decided he needed to take a certain drastic course of action. Guided by intuition, he dug deep into his reserve rage cistern and waited patiently for the opportune moment. The setup had to be perfect. In a precise manner, Paul progressed, undercutting Mick's lower guard with his sword. Seeing this, Mick strategically sacrificed immediate gains for later ones and allowed what he hoped wouldn't be too deep of a cut to the leg from Paul. Sustaining the excruciating hit, Mick spun around 180 degrees in stride and drove his sword into the neck of the closer of the two thieves battling Dave. With Dave's impending danger neutralized, Mick now had a chance to see how deep of a cut to his leg he suffered. It bled profusely, but it wasn't life-threatening. Fortunately, the broadsword had punctured the vital femoral artery running through his upper leg. He sighed relief. Wielding rage left over from the move assisting Dave, Mick was able to slay Paul with a three-part maneuver managed with exactitude. Motionless, Paul lay dead on the ground. Mick now had the chance to further assist Dave, but as luck would have, he noticed Dave had just easily defeated his single combatant. So, instead, Mick quickly and exaggeratedly sheathed his sword for effect. His unconscious mind summoned the type of euphoria that an individual could only experience during a moment of glory. Dave's level of exuberance immediately grew to match Mick's. After they simultaneously relished in a few fist pumps of triumph, they shook each other's hands, congratulating each other on the well-played battle. There would be no more fake pilgrimages, no friendly exchanges of money. Mick and Dave felt bad people had to die, but knew the thieves were too aggressive to prevent it. Mick tended to his wound by temporarily wrapping basswood leaves around it to stop the bleeding, a remedy that would have to work until getting into town, where he could obtain more suitable bandages. When Dave's victory elation dissipated enough to talk clearly, he exclaimed, "Unbelievable, Mick. That maneuver you unleashed to slay the first of my opponents was fantastic. Who would have thought they'd be so oblivious?" "I improvised. And, equal impressiveness, your ability to hold the line against the two for so long was remarkable, and of great valor, my friend." Thank you. Let's gather their stolen property and head into town to bring it to the authorities. Lead the way." The town of Zant was positioned just off-center of the country Karavanserov, the nation to which Dave and Mick owed their perpetual allegiance, to which they owed their most prized possession, their freedom, and for which they'd die. Encasing Zant at its perimeter and standing sturdily were walls 20 feet high, which were just wide enough at the top for sentries to keep a solid lookout. Within the walls were multiple commercial and residential buildings. Only the hotel, Boyer Manor, and the steeple of one of the churches could be seen towering over the wall. The census usually revealed a population of no more than 300 residents, but because Olfenkirk's army had spent the night there, the current population had swelled to over 1,000. Although the army was set to leave shortly, people from all around were still trickling in from the countryside just to lay eyes on the troops and envelop themselves in the excitement spawning from such a spectacle. The people wouldn't soon forget all the stories told to them by older family members, unforgettably true tales of the great battle that took place in Zant more than 200 years ago, of when the town took stage and became the turning point for Karavanserov. Karavanserovians hoped these new invaders would flee back to their home country just as they did in the old stories. The people of Zant clung onto optimism as they did the old stories. In an adequately sized tent, flapping uncontrollably in the wind, which primarily served the purpose for holding war councils, stood General Olfenkirk, his second command Sven Algar, and notable warriors Steve Johnson. "I never knew that's why you don't like being called by your first name," said Steve to Olfenkirk. "If I were you, I too would much rather be called General Olfenkirk or the Black Bear instead of Kermoy." "Anyways," Olfenkirk interrupted, "I do not agree with you, Sven, on what you suggested about the next course of action. Sometimes in life you must take a chance. I would really like to go directly to aid Raiden's archers, but I would give it a 75% chance that Onelsky will try to infiltrate Strin next instead of marching on to Throg, where my friend General Night Eagle can intercept. Furthermore, I can also assume Onelsky wants to meet up with Bamsov and his archers to reinforce his campaign. It is decided then. We will go directly to Strin and hopefully meet up with Raiden there instead of going directly to him. Send word to Archer General Raiden of my intent right away. Yes, General, sir, returns Ben. Alright, we'll stop this video here. And I hope you liked it. And if you did, don't forget to hit the like button. And subscribe and share and do whatever magical things YouTubers can do on their phone.